Okay, let's do a little visualization exercise to kick things off. I want you to picture one of the most iconic scenes in human history.
Mount Sinai
Mount Sinai, the giving of the Torah.
is a powerful image, the defining moment of a people.
Right. You got the thunder, the lightning, the smoke, just rising from the mountain. And you have the Israelites standing at the base, trembling, waiting for this massive revelation. It feels incredibly intimate. Like this private, exclusive contract signing between God and the Jewish people. The rest of the world is just kind of in the background. If they're there at all, it feels like a members-only event.
That is certainly the classic view. It's the moment of the chosen people being chosen. But if we look at the sources we have today...
Which we're about to do.
Yes. Specifically, a deep analytical discourse from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that just dissects a very specific ruling by Maimonides, or the Rambam. That view isn't just incomplete. It might actually be missing the main broadcast.
Missing the main broadcast. That's a bold start.
Well, think about the noise. The Midrash tells us the sound of Sinai traveled from one end of the world to the other.
Okay.
Why make that much noise for a private meeting?
Yeah.
The source we're diving into today suggests that the noise of Sinai was meant to shake the entire world, not just the Jewish camp.
So you're saying Sinai wasn't just a Jewish event?
Exactly. And this is where we have to unpack a really surprising text. We are looking at the Mishnah Torah by Maimonides, specifically in the Laws of Kings. Okay. And he drops something of a bombshell regarding the job description of Moses.
I read this in the prep and I had to read it twice, because usually we think Moses commands the Jews. But Maimonides writes that Moses was commanded by the Almighty to, and I'm quoting here, compel all the inhabitants of the world to accept the commandments given to the children of Noah.
To compel all the inhabitants of the world.
That is heavy language. Compel. It sounds...
Well, to a modern ear, it sounds intense.
A little. It sounds like coercion. Before we get stuck on the word compel, and I do want to circle back to what that actually means, let's just look at the scope here. Moses isn't just the teacher of Israel. He's being painted as the moral guardian of humanity.
Right. And this sets the stage for our entire deep dive today. We're exploring this idea that a distinctly Jewish event at Sinai fundamentally altered the moral obligation of every single human being on earth, whether they realize it or not.
So let's unpack the content first. Maimonides mentions the commandments given to the children of Noah. I think most of our listeners have heard of the Seven Noahide Laws, but just to be safe,
good idea.
Let's define what we're actually talking about here. This isn't the full kosher laws and Shabbat, right?
No, absolutely not. So long before Sinai, going back to Noah and even Adam, there was a universal moral code. It's not the 613 commandments that Jews have. It's 7 fundamental principles for, a functioning civilization.
Like what?
Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not worship idols. Do not commit adultery. Establish courts of justice. Do not eat a limb from a living animal, which is basically a prohibition against cruelty. And do not curse God.
Okay, so basic universal morality. Civilization 101. Don't kill people, don't steal their stuff, have a court system.
Correct.
But here is where I get stuck on the timeline. And I think this is the logical snag the Rebbe really drills into in the source.
Yes.
If these laws are called the Noahide Laws, that implies they were given to Noah. Noah lived generations before Moses.
Way before.
So the world already had these laws. They already knew they shouldn't kill or steal. Why does Maimonides say Moses has to recommand them at Sinai?
It's the regifting problem.
Exactly. It feels like regifting. Here's this thing you already have. If I'm a non-Jew living in ancient Egypt or Babylon, and I'm already not killing people because Noah told my ancestors not to, what does Moses adding his voice to the mix actually change? Why fix what isn't broken?
You have hit on the central paradox of this source material. Why drag Sinai into a pre-existing condition? To answer that, we have to look at why people keep laws. Before Sinai, how did the world operate? What was the basis for not murdering someone?
Well, I assume it's because murdering is bad. It destroys society.
Yeah.
If I kill you, someone kills me, it's logical.
Exactly. It makes sense. It is sexual. Intellect, logic. A person didn't kill or steal because it made logical sense for a functioning society. And for a long time, that was the operating system of the world. But the source material points out a very grim observation about human nature. Intellect is fragile.
Fragile in what way? Because usually we think of logic as this rock-solid thing. Trust the science, trust the logic.
Intellect is flexible. Logic is a tool, and tools can be used to build or to dismantle. The source argues that if my morality is based on it makes sense to me, what happens when it suddenly makes sense to me to hurt you?
Mm.
What happens when a society decides that for the greater good, or for economic stability, or for racial purity, we need to eliminate a certain group of people?
I see where you're going. If logic is the only anchor, then you can use logic to rationalize evil. You can essentially hack the moral code because you wrote the code.
Precisely. Logic is a mercenary. It works for the highest bidder. And we don't have to look far back in history to see this. The source specifically alludes to this idea that enlightened cultures,
The most advanced ones.
societies that were the pinnacle of philosophy and science and logic, were capable of justifying monstrous acts. Because if I am the source of the authority, if my brain is the judge, then I can change the law when it suits me.
That is terrifyingly accurate when you look at the 20th century.
So this brings us back to Sinai. The twist that the source reveals is that Sinai wasn't about giving the world new information. They knew murder was wrong. Sinai was about giving the world a new source of authority.
So it shifts from, I don't murder because I understand why it's bad, to,
I don't murder because God commanded it.
that is a massive shift.
Yeah.
It moves the center of gravity outside of the human mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At Sinai, the basis of morality shifted from, it makes sense to me, to, God commanded this. This creates an objective morality, an absolute morality, one that cannot be twisted by human reasoning or convenience.
Wow.
Maimonides is teaching us that Moses wasn't just delivering a book to the Jews. He was delivering the concept of divine authority to the world. He was saying, from now on, we don't keep the rules just because they are smart. We keep them because the king said so.
And that protects the rules from us.
Protects the rules from us, and it protects us from ourselves. It anchors morality in the infinite rather than the finite human mind.
This actually leads directly into a very specific, almost technical distinction Maimonides makes in the text, which I found fascinating, but also a little controversial.
I know the one.
It's about the definition of a pious person.
Yes. The term is Chesidi Umot Halom, the pious of the nations of the world. In Jewish thought, this is a very high spiritual status.
Right.
It basically means a non-Jew who has a share in the world to come. It's the ultimate spiritual achievement for the nations.
Right. So Maimonides has a specific ruling on how you earn this title, and it's not just about action.
No, it's not. Maimonides writes, and this is crucial, that to be considered one of the pious of the nations, a non-Jew must keep the moral laws specifically because God commanded them in the Torah via Moses.
Okay, hold on. I want to challenge this for a second because it sounds a bit harsh.
Go for it.
Let's say you have a philosopher, a brilliant ethical philosopher who spends his whole life writing books about why charity is good and murder is wrong, and he lives by those rules perfectly. He's a good person.
Sure.
But he does it because his intellect tells him it's the right path. He's not doing it because of Moses.
Maimonides is very clear on this case. That person might be considered one of the wise of the nations, Jack Emihem,
Okay.
but he is not considered one of the pious.
That feels like a technicality. He did the right thing. Why does the motivation strip him of the title pious?
Because pious implies a relationship. Wise implies intellect. If he does it because of his intellect, he is essentially serving his own understanding. He's serving himself. If he does it because God commanded it, he is serving the Creator. The source emphasizes that it's not just what you do, but why you do it. The connection to the commander is as important as the command itself.
So the wise man is acting alone, essentially. The pious man is acting in partnership with the divine.
Exactly. And practically, if he's doing it based on intellect, we go back to that danger we talked about. His intellect could change. The bond isn't permanent. The pious person has submitted their will to a higher authority. That submission creates a stability that intellects can never provide.
It's the difference between agreeing with the law and accepting the law. One is an opinion, the other is citizenship.
That's a great way to put it. And this reminds me of that analogy in the source material, the one about the king entering the province.
Oh, right. This parable from the Mechilta, it really clarifies the why for me. Walk us through it.
So a king enters a province, and the people come out to greet him. They're enthusiastic. They say, "Your Majesty, give us decrees, give us rules. We want to serve you."
Which sounds like a good thing. They want to be governed.
It is good when the king says, "No. First, accept my sovereignty, my Malchut, and only then will I issue decrees."
First accept the king, then accept the laws.
Because without accepting the authority of the king, the decrees are just advice. They are suggestions.
Right.
If I haven't accepted you as my king, I'll follow your decrees as long as I agree with them. But the moment I disagree, I'm out.
That makes sense. If I don't recognize your authority, your rules are just inconveniences?
Exactly. So acceptance of sovereignty is the foundation. If you pull that out, the whole building collapses. And Maimonides actually codes this into the laws.
How so?
He separates the prohibition of idolatry, which is essentially the acceptance of the king, from the other laws. The Jewish role, the mission given at Sinai, is to introduce the world to the king, not just the rules. We aren't just morality police checking if people are stealing. We are ambassadors of sovereignty.
This brings us to the so what part of the conversation, because we started with Maimonides using that intense word, compel, latch off. Moses commanded us to compel the world. In 2024, compelling people to follow religious laws sounds, well, problematic. It sounds like forcing your beliefs on others.
It does. And the source addresses this head on. The Rebbe explains that compelling changes based on the reality of the times.
Okay.
In a time when the Jewish people had a sovereign state of political power, compel might have had a legalistic or judicial meaning. But in modern times, when we do not use force, and when force isn't even effective, the definition of compel shifts.
So what does compel look like for us today?
It means exerting influence, but not through fear, through strength of conviction, through explanation, through pleasant ways. The source says that because this is a commandment from Sinai, it carries a certain spiritual power. When you speak words of truth coming from Torah, they have a built-in capacity to be heard.
So it's moral persuasion. It's sharing a truth you believe in deeply.
It's moral persuasion, but it requires the Jewish people to step out of their comfort zone. And this touches on a concept the source calls escaping the spiritual ghetto.
The spiritual ghetto, that's a loaded phrase. Unpack that for us.
It refers to an isolationist mindset. I'm Jewish. I have my 613 commandments. I'm busy with my own spiritual life. The rest of the world, that's not my department.
Right. I'll worry about my kosher food and my Sabbath, and whatever the neighbors do is their business.
Exactly. The source argues vehemently against this. It says that Sinai made the world your business. You are part of a kingdom of priests.
Okay.
What does a priest do? A priest doesn't just serve himself. A priest serves the people. A priest facilitates the connection between the people and God. If the Jewish people are a kingdom of priests, who is the congregation?
The nations of the world.
Exactly. So if you stay in your spiritual ghetto, locking the doors, you are failing in your priesthood.
There is a story in the source material that really brings this down to earth. Because this all sounds great in theory, be a priest to the nations, but in practice, it's awkward.
It can be.
The story is about a chassid, a businessman who had clients who weren't Jewish, and the Rebbe was encouraging everyone to talk about the Seven Noahide Laws.
And the businessman was hesitant.
Hesitant. He was terrified. He's thinking, I'm trying to close a deal here. I'm selling merchandise. If I suddenly start preaching about God and morality, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. I'll lose the client.
It's very natural fear. We separate our business life from our faith life. We have different hats.
But the Rebbe's response was so sharp. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, you aren't ashamed to sell them merchandise. Why are you ashamed to offer them values?
That is a profound reframing.
It really is. He's basically saying you're willing to sell them a toaster or a contract, but you're holding back the secret to a meaningful life. You're stingy with the truth.
And the punchline of the story is that the businessman actually tried it. He started mentioning God, mentioning justice, and instead of running away, the non-Jewish client respected him more.
That's counterintuitive. Why do you think that happened?
Because the world is thirsty. That is the underlying truth here. We think the world wants to be left alone to do whatever it wants. But deep down, people are looking for purpose. They're looking for that objective morality we talked about earlier. When a person stands for something, when they stand for justice and God, that projects strength. It projects integrity.
So the client sees this and thinks, this guy answers to a higher authority than just the profit margin. I can trust him.
Exactly. He won't cheat me, not because he's afraid of getting caught, but because he believes God is watching. Yeah. That builds trust. So far from being bad for business, this mission actually elevates every interaction.
It changes the whole landscape of your day. You aren't just commuting to work or buying groceries. Every interaction at the office, in the market, with a neighbor is a chance to do this compelling, this influencing.
It is a chance to remind someone that the world has a landlord, that it's not a jungle.
It's interesting, though. We typically think of missionary work as trying to convert people. Come join my team. But that's not what this is it? We aren't trying to make them Jewish.
No, and that's a crucial distinction. We are not trying to turn non-Jews into Jews. We're trying to help non-Jews be the best non-Jews they can be according to the plan God has for them. We aren't selling membership to the tribe. We are promoting the universal constitution of humanity.
Which goes back to that idea of unity and diversity. We don't all have to be the same, but we all have to look toward the same king.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source tells us that this isn't just a nice social project. This is actually the preparation for the end of days, or the Messianic era.
How so? That seems like a big jump from talking to your neighbor to bringing the Messiah.
Well, what is the Messianic era? It's a time when the reality of God is obvious to everyone. The source quotes the prophet Zephaniah. Then I will turn to the nations, a pure language, to serve him with one shoulder.
With one shoulder, that implies cooperation.
It implies a unified effort. The goal isn't for the Jewish people to be the only ones standing at the finish line. The goal is a world where all nations, in their own distinct way, using their own pure language, recognize the Creator.
I see.
By influencing our neighbors now, by introducing that pure language of objective morality and divine authority, we are literally building the infrastructure for that future era.
It's like tuning the orchestra before the symphony starts.
That is a beautiful analogy. We are helping everyone find their note so that when the conductor raises the baton, we can all play together.
So let's bring this down to the listener right now. We've covered Maimonides, the fragility of intellect, the difference between being wise and pious, and this mandate to influence. If I'm listening to this and I'm just a regular person, I'm not a rabbi, I'm not a philosopher, what do I do with this information?
I think the takeaway is to realize that you have a voice. Maimonides says Moses was commanded to compel or influence. That command rolls down through the generations to you. You don't have to stand on a soapbox. But when you see moral confusion, when you see someone struggling with the why of right and wrong, you can gently introduce the idea of divine providence. You can mention that there are rules that don't change just because society changes.
It's about not being afraid to bring God into the conversation.
Yes, and realizing that when you do, you aren't imposing. You are sharing the inheritance of Sinai that belongs to them too. The noise of Sinai was for them. You're just delivering the message.
I love that. The message was sent thousands of years ago, or just the delivery drivers finally dropping off the package.
Exactly, and the package is overdue.
Here is a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over. We talked about how the businessman was afraid to speak up because he thought he was just there to sell goods.
Right.
Think about your last interaction with someone from a different background. Maybe it was the cashier, maybe a client, maybe a taxi driver. You probably exchanged money or goods or small talk about the weather. But ask yourself this. Did you exchange anything real? Did you leave them with just a receipt? Or did you leave them with a reminder of their own infinite worth and responsibility to the Creator?
Because if Sinai was for everyone, then every interaction is an opportunity to fulfill that mission.
Are you just exchanging goods, or are you fulfilling the mandate of Moses? That's the question.
And the answer might change the world.
Thanks for diving in with us today.
Thank you.